I thought I was the only woman in his life, until I found the calendar. I'm going to start this the way I wish my brain would let me remember it. Clean, simple, and far away. But it wasn't clean. It was slow. It was little things that didn't make sense until they did. And then suddenly every memory in the last 2 years felt like it had a second meaning hiding underneath it. And before anyone asks, yes, I left. No, it wasn't easy. And yes, there's one part of this that still makes me feel embarrassed, even now, because it proves how easy it is to gaslight someone who's trying to love you in good faith. This is my story. Female POV. Relationship betrayal. Slow reveal. No dramatic Hollywood villains. Just a man who learned how to live a double life because everyone around him kept letting him. And me, the woman who finally stopped letting him. I met Evan at a place that felt safe. That's the funniest part. It was a friend's engagement party. String lights, cheap champagne, too loud music, and that particular kind of warm noise that makes you believe the world is basically okay. I was 30 at the time, single for almost a year, finally starting to enjoy being alone without turning it into a personality trait. Evan was the kind of man that looks like he belongs in those gatherings. Not flashy, not attention-seeking, just easy. He had dark hair that never fell into his eyes like a movie, but still looked like he made some effort. He had a clean, calm voice. He laughed at the right moments without dominating the conversation. When he listened, he looked directly at you, not past you. That sounds like a low bar. I know. But after dating apps and the kind of men who treat conversation like a vending machine, it felt like I'd stumbled onto something rare. We talked near the kitchen island, while the engaged couple did their rounds. He asked what I did, and I told him I worked in marketing for a small company that mostly handled boring corporate clients. He didn't pretend it was fascinating. He just asked questions like he was actually curious about me as a person. And then he said, "You seem like someone who keeps it together even when you're tired." I laughed because it was weirdly specific. "What makes you say that?" I asked. He shrugged. "It's in the way you stand, like you're carrying something but refusing to let it show." I should have heard it right then. I should have recognized the kind of man who can read people, because the kind of man who can read you can also learn how to play you. But instead, I felt seen. He asked for my number at the end of the night, and I gave it to him without thinking too hard. It felt like a normal thing, a nice thing. The next morning, he texted me, "Coffee sometime this week. No pressure." No pressure. That phrase makes me sick now. Because there was pressure. There was always pressure. It just wasn't the kind you notice until you're already underwater. The first few months were what I would call quiet good. Not fireworks, not drama, just steady. He wasn't a constant texter, but he checked in. He didn't love bomb me. He didn't rush the relationship. He seemed like he valued his routine, which I respected because I valued mine too. Evan worked in sales, something about enterprise accounts, which is fancy code for he talked to companies all day. He traveled sometimes. Not constantly, but enough that it made sense why there were weekends he couldn't see me. He had an apartment that looked like someone lived there but didn't truly live there. Clean, minimal, a few framed pictures that felt slightly generic. A black-and-white city photo, a print of a mountain range, a small plant on a shelf that had the look of something purchased already adult. I didn't think much of it at the time. Men can be like that, or maybe he'd moved recently, or maybe he was just tidy. If I'm honest, I liked it. It made me feel like he had his life in order. He met my friends. They liked him. He shook hands, remembered names, asked about people's jobs without being weird about it. My best friend, Talia, pulled me aside after the second time he hung out with our group and said, "He seems solid, don't overthink it." Which, of course, made me feel like I could stop holding my breath. There were small things that made me hesitate, but I brushed them off. He never really posted on social media. His Instagram existed, but it was a ghost town, 3 photos, none of them recent. No comments, no tags. I thought, okay, he's private. That's actually attractive. He didn't introduce me to his family for a while. He said they were complicated and that he wasn't super close to them. Again, normal. Lots of people have complicated families. Sometimes he'd get a call, glance at the screen, and step into another room. When I asked who it was, he'd say, "Work," or "my friend Josh," or "my mom." And I believed him because why wouldn't I? This is what trust looks like in real life. It isn't a grand vow. It's 1,000 tiny moments where you decide not to suspect the person you're building something with. And I was building. By month 6, Evan had a key to my place. He didn't ask for it. I offered. I remember standing in my kitchen, holding the spare key like it was something sacred, and saying, "It's just easier if you don't have to wait outside when you get here." He smiled, kissed my forehead, and said, "You sure?" And I said, "Yes." And that's the moment I became convenient. The first real crack appeared on a random Tuesday. I had a late meeting, got home tired, and Evan was already there, sitting on my couch, watching something on TV. He looked relaxed, like he belonged there. He stood up and hugged me, and I noticed he was wearing a different cologne. Not wildly different, just not his. His usual scent was warm, slightly woody. This one was sharper, cleaner, almost like a hotel soap smell. I didn't say anything at first. I just tucked it away. Later, when we were in bed, he went to the bathroom, and I heard his phone vibrate on my nightstand. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'm not going to pretend I didn't do it. I glanced. The screen lit up with a message preview. "Did you make it home okay?" Red. No name, just a number. My stomach tightened in that way it does before your brain catches up. When he came back, I forced myself to keep my face neutral. "Who was that?" I asked casually, like I didn't care. He didn't hesitate. "My sister, she worries." Something in me wanted to say, "That's weird," because it didn't show a contact name. But instead, I said, "Oh." He climbed into bed, kissed my shoulder, and said, "You okay? You look tired." And I said, "Just a long day." And then I lay awake for an hour, staring at the ceiling, telling myself I was paranoid. Because if you love someone, and they say something with confidence, you want to believe them more than you want to be right. The next morning, I looked at his phone while he was in the shower. I didn't unlock it. I didn't scroll. It was face down on the counter. I flipped it over to see the lock screen. No notifications. Nothing. Either I imagined it, or he'd cleared it. And I hated myself for even thinking that. Months passed. We moved in that direction people move when things feel stable. More nights together, fewer "what are we?" conversations, more talk about the future. He started leaving a toothbrush at my place, a hoodie, a pair of shoes. It felt domestic, safe. And then, just as I started to fully relax, he began pulling away in small, unprovable ways. He was still affectionate, but slightly distracted, like his mind was elsewhere even when his body was with me. He'd cancel plans last minute, "Work emergency, client dinner. I'm exhausted, can we do tomorrow?" Tomorrow would come, and he'd show up with flowers or takeout and act like everything was normal. Like I shouldn't be upset because he was compensating. It worked too well. I remember one Friday we were supposed to go to a small concert with my friends. I was excited, wearing a dress I'd bought specifically for it, something I never did, something a little bold. Evan texted an hour before we were supposed to meet. "I'm so sorry, babe. Something came up. I'll make it up to you." I stared at my phone until the letters blurred. I went anyway, pretended I wasn't disappointed, told my friends he couldn't make it. They shrugged, not suspicious, because life happens. But later that night, Talia pulled me aside and said, "Are you sure he's okay? He's been bailing a lot." I defended him instantly. "He's stressed, work is crazy." Talia didn't argue. She just nodded like she was shelving a thought. That should have scared me more. Because when the friend who loves you starts shelving thoughts, it means she's seen something she doesn't want to say out loud yet. The turning point, what I now call the beginning of the end, happened because of a stupid, ordinary thing. Laundry. Evan stayed over for 4 nights in a row. On the 5th morning, he left early for a meeting, and I realized he'd left a button-down shirt at my place. I picked it up from the floor, and it smelled like that sharper cologne again. I held it up to my face and just stood there in my bedroom, breathing it in like it would explain itself. Then I noticed something else. A hair. Longer than mine, darker than mine, and caught in the collar seemed like it had been there for a while. My hair is light brown. This hair was deep black. I told myself it could have come from anywhere. A coworker brushing by him, a bar, a coat check, life. But it didn't feel like life. It felt like a message. So I did something that makes me cringe to this day. I put the shirt in a bag and didn't wash it. I waited. That evening, Evan came over like nothing was wrong. He kissed me, asked about my day, sat on the couch, kicked off his shoes. And I said, "Hey, you left your shirt here." "Oh," he said, smiling. "Thanks." I handed it to him. He didn't even glance at it. He folded it quickly, almost automatically, like he wanted it out of sight. My pulse jumped. He was careful. Not guilty exactly, just careful. That night, I didn't sleep much. Because something in me, some primitive instinct, finally stopped negotiating with my denial. The next week, I started noticing patterns. Not proof, patterns. Evan would always have his phone face down. Always. If it was face up, he'd flip it without thinking. He'd take calls in the hallway. He'd step onto my balcony for work. He never let his phone out of his immediate reach, not like a casual habit, but like a security system. I started watching his body language, the way you watch a stranger in a crowded place. When he got a text, his eyes would flick down fast, his thumb would move, and then he'd glance at me like he was checking if I noticed. And then one evening, something happened that felt like the universe got tired of whispering and decided to speak clearly. We were at dinner at a small restaurant near my apartment. Evan was telling me about a client. I was half listening, half staring at the way the candlelight made him look softer than real life. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. And for the first time, I saw something flash across his face that wasn't calm. It was alarm. He picked it up quickly, turned it toward himself, and then his thumb hovered like he didn't know what to do. I watched him. I watched his throat move when he swallowed. Then he looked up at me and said, "I'm so sorry, work. I have to take this." And he stood up and walked outside. He left the phone on the table for a split second while he grabbed his coat, just long enough for the screen to light up again. I saw the notification. "Where are you? You said you'd be here by 7. No name, just a number again. No heart emoji this time, just impatience. My chest went cold. When he came back 10 minutes later, he was smiling. Too much, like he was trying to glue normalcy over something cracked. "Everything okay?" I asked. He nodded quickly. "Yeah, just a client thing." I stared at him, searching his eyes for something honest. And I realized something terrifying. He was good at this. Not in a he's charming way. In a he's practiced way. I didn't confront him that night. I didn't have enough proof to feel brave. Instead, I did what I always do when I'm scared. I got organized. I started paying attention like an investigator, not a girlfriend. I kept mental notes. Dates he canceled. Times he disappeared. The difference between his work stress, voice, and his I'm lying voice, which, in hindsight, had always been there. Then, 2 weeks later, I found the thing that changed everything. It was a Saturday morning. Evan had left early, saying he had to help Josh with something. I decided to clean, not because I wanted to, because cleaning is what I do when my anxiety needs a job. I stripped the bed, started a load of laundry, wiped down the counters. Then I noticed his jacket draped over a chair. I picked it up to hang it, and something fell from the inside pocket. A small folded paper. It fluttered onto the floor like it didn't know it was about to ruin my life. I picked it up. It was a receipt, a hotel receipt. Not from our city. From a town 2 hours away. Dated last weekend. 2 nights. 1 room. 2 guests. I sat down on the floor, still holding it, like my legs had forgotten how to work. 2 guests. Not 1. 2. My hands started shaking so hard, I could barely unfold it fully. The name on the receipt was his. Evan Miller. And below it in smaller text, guest AW. It cut off because of the fold. AW. My brain tried to fill it in. Ashley, Amanda, Allison. I didn't know. But suddenly, the story in my head shifted from maybe he's talking to someone to he is actively living a second life. I stared at that receipt for a long time, and then I did something I'd never done before. I called Talia. She answered on the second ring. Hey, what's up? I tried to speak, but my throat felt tight. Talia, I said, and my voice cracked. I think Evan is cheating on me. There was a pause. Not because she didn't believe me. Because she had already considered it. Okay, she said gently. Breathe, tell me what you found. I told her about the receipt, the 2 guests, the initials. And she said, do you want to confront him or do you want to know the truth first? That question hit me like a slap. Because confronting him, without proof, would just give him room to lie. And I was done giving him room. I want the truth, I whispered. Then, she said, we get proof, real proof. I hate admitting this part, because it makes me feel like a person I don't want to be. But here it is. We set a trap. Not a cruel one, not revenge. Just a trap designed to reveal what was already happening. Talia suggested we check his social media more thoroughly. Not just his posts, tags, followers, connections. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, my heart pounding like I was about to commit a crime. We found nothing at first. His Instagram was still empty. No tags, no relationship status anywhere. Then Talia said, what about Facebook? I hadn't even thought of that. Evan had told me he never used Facebook. But when I searched his name, I found an account. It wasn't public, but it existed. Profile picture, him slightly younger smiling. Cover photo, a landscape. No visible posts. Nothing. And yet, his friends list was visible. And in that list, I saw a name that made my stomach drop. A woman named Alyssa W. Her profile picture was a selfie with a bright smile, dark hair. Initials. AW. I clicked. Her account was public. And there it was. A photo from 6 months ago. Evan, standing in a backyard, holding a glass, smiling. The caption, my favorite person. My vision tunneled. I scrolled down. Another photo. Evan and Alyssa at what looked like a wedding. Caption, can't believe it's almost 3 years. 3 years. I had been with him for nearly 2. I felt like I was going to throw up. Talia's voice was calm, but I could hear the anger underneath it. Stefan, sorry, listen. Are you okay? I wasn't okay. I zoomed in on the wedding photo. There was a ring on Alyssa's finger. And then I looked at Evan's hand. A ring. A wedding band. I sat back so hard my chair scraped against the floor. He's married, I whispered. Talia went quiet. Because even she hadn't expected that. I didn't cry immediately. That came later. At first I felt numb. Like my mind was protecting me by putting everything behind glass. I stared at Alyssa's profile, scrolling like it would eventually show me a joke, a reveal, a gotcha where it was all fake. But it wasn't fake. There were years of photos, holidays, trips, family gatherings. Evan with her parents. Evan with her friends. Evan in a Christmas sweater, holding a dog. Their dog. I recognized the dog. Because Evan had once shown me a photo of Josh's dog on his phone. Same dog. Same goofy face. Same background. Not Josh's dog. His. There. Everything in my brain started clicking into place with a sickening precision. The weekends he couldn't see me, the trips, the calls he took outside, the phone face down, the generic apartment. It wasn't his real home. It was a staging area. A place where he could pretend to be single. A place where there were no family photos, no shared furniture, no evidence of a wife. A place for me. I wanted to scream. But instead, I just sat there, frozen, until Talia said softly, "We need to decide what you want to do." "What I want to do," I said, and my voice sounded strange like someone else, "is talk to her." Talia was cautious. "Are you sure?" I nodded even though my stomach was rolling. She deserves to know. And, if I'm being honest, part of me wanted someone else to confirm it out loud. Because as long as it was just photos on a screen, my brain could still try to deny it. I clicked message. I stared at the blank text box for what felt like an hour. What do you say to a stranger whose life your boyfriend has been borrowing? "Hi, I think your husband is cheating on you with me." I started typing, deleted, typed, deleted. Finally, I wrote, "Hi, Alyssa. I'm so sorry to message you out of nowhere. My name is my name, and I've been in a relationship with Evan Miller for almost 2 years. I just found your profile and I believe he may be married to you. I have no intention of hurting you and I truly didn't know. I can share details if you want. Again, I'm so sorry." I stared at it. My finger hovered. Then I hit send. And immediately, I felt like I might pass out. She didn't reply that day. Or the next. I went through a strange cycle of emotions. Fury, shame, heartbreak, disbelief, and then fury again. Evan came over that evening like nothing was wrong. He kissed me, asked what I wanted for dinner, sat on my couch. I watched him with a new kind of vision, like the mask had become visible. Every word he said sounded rehearsed. I wanted to jump on him with the truth, scream it in his face, throw the hotel receipt at him like a weapon. But Talia had warned me. If you confront him first, he'll warn her, he'll spin it, he'll control the narrative. So I sat there, acting normal, while my insides felt like they were dissolving. That night, Evan fell asleep beside me, breathing evenly like a man with nothing to hide. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, and realized something even worse than he's married. He could sleep. He could sleep because he didn't feel guilty. He felt entitled. 3 days later, Alyssa responded. Her message came in at 2:17 p.m. on a Wednesday. I remember because I was at work, pretending to care about an email thread while my heart lived in my throat. The notification popped up. My hands started shaking. I opened it. "Who are you?" That was it, 3 words. No punctuation. I typed back, "My name is my name. I met Evan at a friend's party. We've been dating since month/year. I didn't know he was married until I found your profile. I'm so sorry." She replied almost immediately. "How long?" "Almost 2 years." There was a pause. Then, "Where does he live?" I swallowed. This is where the other shoe dropped. "An apartment on street." Another pause. Then, "That's not our address." My chest tightened. So the apartment was real, but it wasn't his home with her. It was exactly what I thought, a staging area. A second set. A second version of himself. Alyssa sent another message. "Does he stay with you a lot?" "Yes." "Does he have a key?" "Yes." There was a long silence. Then, "Can you call me?" We talked that evening. I sat in my car in a grocery store parking lot because I didn't want to be in my apartment, surrounded by the illusion of him. Alyssa's voice was calm at first, too calm, like she was balancing on the edge of a breakdown and refusing to fall. She told me they'd been married for 4 years. She told me he traveled for work a lot. She told me she'd had moments of doubt, but every time she questioned him, He'd make her feel crazy. He always had an explanation, she said. Always, and he'd get so offended that I even asked like I was accusing him. That sounded familiar. Then she said something that made my skin prickle. He told me he had a coworker who was obsessed with him, that she kept trying to get him to cheat. He said she was unstable. He said if I ever got a message from someone, not to believe it. I felt like the air left my lungs. He had prepped her. He had already built the story, in case the truth ever escaped. And now, here I was, the unstable woman he'd warned her about. Alyssa asked me to describe him. Habits, routines, details only someone close would know. I told her about his work trips, the hotel receipt, the apartment, the sharp cologne, the phone. At one point, she started crying quietly. Not loud sobs, just that kind of controlled crying that sounds like someone trying not to shatter. I have to ask you something, she said. Okay. Did he tell you he wanted kids? My throat tightened. Yes. She made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He told me he didn't want them yet, she whispered, that I was rushing him. My heart broke for her, in a way that felt like breaking for myself too. Because this wasn't just cheating. It was theft. He was stealing time, futures, choices. He was letting two women build dreams on sand. Alyssa and I decided to meet in person. Not to fight, not to team up for revenge. Just to look at each other and confirm we were real. We met at a coffee shop, halfway between our places. When I walked in, I recognized her immediately. Dark hair, the same smile as her photos, but dimmer in real life. She stood up when she saw me, and for a second we just stared. Then she said softly, "You're not crazy." And that sentence, those 3 words, hit me harder than anything else. Because I had started to feel crazy. We sat down. We compared timelines. And that's when we realized something even worse. There were overlaps. He wasn't alternating between us cleanly. He was with her 1 week and with me the next. He was juggling. Lying to both of us in the same day sometimes. There was a weekend, he told me he was visiting his mom out of town. He told Alyssa he was at a conference. He spent Friday night with her. Saturday afternoon, he drove to my city and spent the night with me. Sunday morning, he left early and drove back to her. Alyssa showed me a photo she'd taken Sunday afternoon of him lounging on their couch. The timestamp was hours after he'd kissed me goodbye. My hands went cold. I remember whispering, "How does someone do that?" Alyssa stared into her coffee like it held an answer. "Because he doesn't see us as people," she said quietly. "He sees us as roles." That was the first time I realized the betrayal wasn't about desire. It was about control. We needed a plan. Alyssa wanted to confront him immediately. I don't blame her. The hurt was fresh, and she had a home, a marriage, a life with him that deserved an explanation. But I reminded her what he'd done already. He'd planted the unstable woman narrative. If she confronted him without proof, he'd twist it again. So we agreed to gather evidence. Not for court, not for public humiliation. For certainty. For protection. For the truth, in a form he couldn't dodge. Alyssa told me she had access to their shared phone bill. She could see the numbers he texted and called. She said, "If you give me your number, I can prove he's been contacting you." I gave it to her. 2 hours later, she sent me screenshots. Hundreds of messages. My number. His number. For 2 years. The dates aligned with our relationship. My stomach twisted. Even though I already knew, seeing it in black and white made it final in a way my heart hadn't accepted yet. Then she sent another screenshot. A number I didn't recognize. But it was there constantly too. Even more than mine, in some weeks. A third woman. Alyssa typed, "I think there's someone else." I stared at the screen until my eyes hurt. Not because I was surprised. Because I was. Because there's a limit to what your heart can imagine, even when it's breaking. We found her through a tiny detail. The number belonged to someone saved in Evan's phone as Mike Plumbing. Alyssa discovered it because she waited until Evan was in the shower one evening, took his phone, and checked his contacts. She told me later she felt sick doing it, but she did it anyway. Mike Plumbing wasn't a man. It was a woman named Marin. Alyssa found her Instagram. Private, but her profile picture was visible. Evan was in it, his arm around her. My blood turned to ice. Alyssa sent her a message. Marin replied the next day. And yes, she was involved with Evan too. Not for 2 years like me, not married like Alyssa. But long enough. Long enough to fall in love. Long enough for him to promise her things. Long enough for him to create a third version of himself. When the three of us compared stories, the pattern became undeniable. Evan did the same things with each of us. The same I'm stressed routine. The same slow build of trust. The same key exchange. The same family is complicated excuse. The same work emergencies. The same refusal to post online. The same charming, calm tone when questioned. It was like he had a script. Here's the part people always ask. Why didn't you see it sooner? Because he never acted like the cliché version of a cheating man. He wasn't sloppy. He wasn't cruel on the surface. He didn't come home smelling like lipstick and lie badly. He was organized. He was emotionally intelligent. He listened, he validated, he apologized when needed. He was the kind of man who could look you in the eye and say, "I'd never do that to you," and make you feel guilty for doubting him. That's what made it so dangerous. Because the betrayal wasn't just in his actions. It was in how he trained us to doubt ourselves. We chose the confrontation date carefully. Alyssa wanted to do it at home, where she felt grounded. Marin wanted to do it in public, where he couldn't get aggressive. I wanted to do it somewhere neutral, where I could leave easily. We compromised. We picked a time when Evan would be at Alyssa's house, because he lived there. That was his real life. And we decided all three of us would be there. Not to yell, not to fight. To present the truth like a mirror. Alyssa invited him to stay in that Friday night. She acted normal. She cooked dinner. She laughed at his jokes. She kissed him goodnight. She told me later, it felt like acting in a play where the audience didn't know the ending yet. The next morning, she texted me and Marin, "He's here." My hands were shaking so badly, I had to sit in my car for 5 minutes before I could drive. Marin arrived first. I arrived 10 minutes later. Alyssa opened the door, her face pale but determined. Evan was in the living room, sitting on the couch, coffee in hand, wearing sweatpants like a man who believed he was safe. When he saw me walk in, his expression froze. Not surprise, because he recognized me. But something else. Calculation. His eyes flicked to Alyssa, then to Marin, then back to me. For a second, he looked like someone caught in a sudden spotlight. Then, almost instantly, his face shifted into calm. He stood up slowly. "Babe," he said to Alyssa, voice gentle, "what is this?" Alyssa didn't answer. Marin stepped forward and said, "Hi, Evan." He looked at her like he was seeing a ghost. Then he did the thing that made me realize how deep his manipulation went. He smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a let me control this smile. "Okay," he said softly. "Can we talk about this like adults?" Like adults. As if we were the ones causing drama by showing up with the truth. Alyssa held up her phone. "The phone bill," she said. Her voice was steady in a way I respected so much. "Your calls, your texts, 2 years with her, and however long with Marin." Evan exhaled slowly, like he was disappointed in us. Not himself. Us. He rubbed his forehead. "This isn't what it looks like." I felt something snap inside me, something that had been trying to hold on to love. "Evan," I said, my voice shaking, "you're married." He looked directly at me. I never said I was. I stared at him. I asked you, I whispered. I asked you about your life, your family, your home. You had an entire apartment. He nodded slightly. Yes. As if that was a reasonable answer. Marin's voice was small. You told me you lived alone. Evan turned to her and said, I told you my situation was complicated. Alyssa's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. Complicated, she repeated. You mean you wanted to cheat without consequences? Evan's face tightened for the first time. He sat back down on the couch slowly, like he was surrendering to inconvenience. Look, he said, I didn't plan for this to happen like this. That sentence, that was his confession. Not I'm sorry. Not I hurt you. Just, I didn't plan to get caught. We asked him why. Not because we expected a satisfying answer, but because, sometimes, you need to hear the emptiness to stop searching for meaning. Evan looked at us like we were asking him to explain gravity. I don't know, he said. I loved you all in different ways. Alyssa laughed once, sharp, bitter. You do know that's your answer. He leaned forward, palms open, as if he was presenting logic. I didn't want to lose anyone. My throat burned, so you chose to lie to everyone. He nodded, almost shrugging. People lie. It's not like I was trying to hurt anyone. I felt something cold move through me. Evan, I said quietly, you built 2 years of my life on a lie. He looked at me and said, you were happy, weren't you? That's when I realized he truly did not understand. Or worse, he understood and didn't care. He thought happiness was a product he provided, and we were ungrateful customers because we discovered the packaging was fake. Alyssa stood up. I want you out, she said. Evan blinked. Alyssa. I want you out of my house, she repeated louder. Now. Evan looked around like he expected someone to intervene. No one did. He stood slowly, grabbed his phone from the table and said, Can we talk later when everyone calms down? Marin laughed, soft, stunned. Calm down, you really said that. Evan's jaw tightened, and he looked at me again. I'm going to call you. No, I said, you're not. He frowned. We need closure. We don't need closure, I said. We need distance. Evan's face hardened for the first time into something less polished. He pointed at Alyssa. If you kick me out, you'll regret it. Alyssa didn't flinch. Get out. And he did. But not before turning at the door and saying, You're all overreacting. Overreacting. To a double life. To years of deception. To stolen time. After he left, the three of us stood there in silence. Alyssa finally started crying. Marin sat down, her hands shaking. I felt like my body had forgotten how to process emotion. It was like the adrenaline had carried us through the confrontation, and now it dropped us into the aftermath. Alyssa wiped her face and said, I feel stupid. You're not, Marin said quickly. I am, Alyssa whispered. I built my life around him. Marin looked at her and said, So did I in my head. Then they both looked at me. And I realized something that made me tear up for the first time. We weren't enemies. We were evidence. We were survivors of the same person. The next weeks were messy. Alyssa filed for separation immediately. Evan tried to fight it at first, then tried to charm her back, then tried to guilt her, then tried to threaten her with financial nonsense. He texted me too, from different numbers because I blocked him. The first message was, Can we talk? I miss you. The second was, You have no idea what you ruined. The third was, I hope you're happy. Classic. He tried to make me the villain in my own story. But something had changed in me. Once you see the machine behind the magic trick, you can't unsee it. I didn't reply. Marin replied once, apparently, just one message. Never contact me again. He responded with, You'll regret this. And when she showed me that, I felt the last piece of denial crumble. Because love doesn't sound like a threat. Here's the part that still makes my chest tight. Even after everything, there were moments I missed him. Not because I wanted him back, because my brain missed the routine. The cuddling on the couch, the inside jokes, the way he'd bring me coffee just because, the way he'd kiss my forehead. And that's the cruelest part of a double life liar. They don't have to be monsters 24/7. They can be sweet. They can be good at being a partner. Because to them, love is performance. And they're great performers. I would catch myself thinking, was any of it real? And then I'd remember the hotel receipt. 2 guests. I'd remember Alyssa's voice saying, he warned her about an unstable woman. I'd remember him saying, you were happy, weren't you? And then my sadness would turn into something steadier. Not rage. Clarity. A month after the confrontation, I ran into Evan by accident. It was at a grocery store near my apartment. I was standing in the aisle, holding pasta sauce, when I heard his voice behind me. Hey. I froze. I turned slowly. There he was, looking almost the same calm face, same I'm reasonable posture. But there was something different too. His eyes were sharper. Like he was annoyed, he had to deal with reality. Hi, I said. He smiled slightly, like we were old friends. You look good. I didn't respond. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I've been trying to reach you. No, I said. You've been trying to get access to me. His smile tightened. That's not fair. I stared at him. Fair, Evan, you were married. He shrugged slightly. Alyssa and I were complicated. That word again. Complicated. I felt my hands go cold on the jar. I looked at him and realized something. He still believed his own narrative. He still believed he was the center, and everyone else was reacting irrationally around him. You know what's complicated, I said quietly. Rebuilding your trust in yourself after someone convinces you not to believe your instincts. His eyes flicked. Irritation flashing. You didn't have to blow up my life, he said. I laughed once, short, humorless. I didn't, you did. His jaw tightened. So you're just going to walk away? Yes, I said. I already did. He leaned in slightly, voice low. You'll miss me. And in that moment, I saw the whole thing clearly. He didn't miss me. He missed the role I played. He missed the version of himself he got to be with me, the admired man, the boyfriend, the center of someone's universe. He missed the mirror. I took a breath and said the simplest truth I could. I don't miss you, I said. I miss who I thought you were. His eyes narrowed. And then he smiled again, thin, almost amused, and said, Good luck. As if I was the one who needed luck. I turned my cart around and walked away. And I didn't look back. I wish I could tell you the ending is dramatic. It is. It's quiet. Healing is mostly quiet. It's unblocking your own intuition. It's sitting in your apartment and realizing you can breathe without waiting for someone's mood. It's catching yourself before you blame yourself for someone else's deceit. It's learning that closure isn't a conversation. It's a decision. Alyssa and I stayed in touch for a while, not constantly, but enough to check in. She told me the divorce process was exhausting, but she was relieved. Marin moved to a different part of the city, started therapy, told me she felt embarrassed for falling for him. I told her the truth. It wasn't embarrassing to trust someone who worked hard to earn it. As for me, I started paying attention to my body again. Because my body knew before my brain did. My body felt the sharp cologne, the unknown hair, the silent phone. My body was trying to protect me, and I kept telling it to be quiet so I could stay in love. Now, when something feels wrong, I don't rush to explain it away. I don't rush to accuse either. I just listen. And if someone gets angry at me for asking reasonable questions, that's an answer. There's one final detail I didn't mention earlier because it feels like a punchline to a tragedy. A few months after everything, I got a message from a woman I didn't know. Her profile was private, no photo. She wrote, "Hi, I'm sorry to bother you. Were you involved with Evan Miller?" My stomach dropped. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Yes, I'm sorry. Are you okay?" She replied, "I think he's dating my sister." And in that moment, I understood something with absolute certainty. Evan didn't learn. He didn't change. He did realize what he lost. He simply found another set of people who didn't know yet. Because the most dangerous liars don't collapse when exposed. They adapt. So I told her everything. The apartment, the marriage, the other woman, the confrontation, the threats, the lines. And I ended my message with the one sentence I wish someone had sent me 2 years earlier. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it's because it is. If you're reading this and you're in that early stage, the stage where you're noticing the little things and trying to convince yourself you're overthinking, please hear me. You're not crazy for wanting clarity. You're not insecure for wanting honesty. And love is not supposed to feel like you're constantly negotiating with your own instincts. If someone is good to you, they won't punish you for asking questions. They won't make you feel guilty for needing consistency. They won't act offended every time you ask for basic transparency. Because that isn't love. That's control. And once you see it, you don't have to keep playing your role. You can walk away. Quietly. Cleanly. And you can get your life back. I did. And I've never regretted it.